All right, students, let's go. Woo! All right, one more live video here. This is the last one before those June ACT test takers. You guys officially take that exam. So I just wanted to get, this is the first time we've done a video like this where it's the day before. But just wanted to get you guys, try to get you guys fired up and try to remember the important things as you go into the test tomorrow. And I mean that without being as cliche as possible. I really do mean that. That one of the benefits for those that have watched our other videos or for those that have been following along this week with some of the videos, one of the things that I constantly reiterate is that my biggest advantage as a test taker as a kid was that I just didn't really care. Now, that's not a good trait. I continue to reiterate that that is a horrible trait for most things in your life. And I used to think I was really cool, and I certainly was not. Looking back at it, it's like one of those youth is wasted on the young kind of things, and you look back and what was I doing? Right? But the reason that it helped me on a test like this is because if I knew the material, and I know a lot of you guys are working really hard, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well. If you guys know the material and you just go and relax, you're going to do such a great job. I can't stress enough how important that thought is and how important that idea is. As we go through this, again, this is not going to be any type of review. That was covered mostly yesterday. This is not going to be primarily any review, but it is going to be trying to get you guys ready to go and highlighting some of the important aspects that we think you should be focused on here over the next 12 hours or so before you have to go in and take the June ACT for those that are taking the test. So as we wait here, guys, as more students log on, if you guys want to give me a thumbs up, if everybody's feeling pretty good about the test or have any questions, go ahead and post those. And I'm going to post a helpful video here as well. I think that most of us, some of you guys may have seen it. One of our teachers posted it on Reddit this morning. Let me see here. So the five essential items to have ready to go. What's up, James? Thanks, man. 5 essential items are ready the night before the ACT exam. Okay, guys. So I'm just posting this now. This video. The 5 essential items to have ready the night before the ACT exam. And again, guys, I know that you don't have to do this, right? I know that you don't have to have this stuff ready, but one of the things that's going to be so helpful is if you wake up in the morning and you don't have to think about anything. There's such a big advantage to not like when you're scrambling around and then you have to go sit down and start this important test. If you're scrambling, that's not going to help you. And so we created this video more than anything. And a lot of the things, I'm sure you guys have seen this, most of our thoughts or techniques or whatever you want to call them for a test like this are based very differently, I think, than I worked for other test companies, and I couldn't get my mind around that. It seemed to be only helping students that were like extremely rigidly focused on this, and that was never me. And what we really tried to create here was this idea of what helped us or what helped me when I was your age, and why I was able to do well on this despite not being a great student, and trying to merge, because I know you guys can put in the work. If you guys have been working really hard over the last 2 months, and I know you guys have been, because I can't tell you how appreciative and hardworking we've seen students in these videos. If you put in the hard work and you match that with this relaxed test-taking ability, the sky is the limit. And it's not. And the most important thing to remember is that it's not just the limit for tomorrow's test. That drives me crazy. When people I used to be told, like, before these different companies I'd worked for, it was like, if you don't spend 4 hours a week every week doing this, and this, then you're never going to be successful. It's like that work ethic will help you, but you don't need to drive yourself crazy. Because I know this seems, again, cliche, but when you wake up tomorrow, you're going to get ready, you're going to go take the test. It's going to be maybe a little bit nerve-wracking. Whatever happens, happens. But then at 12:30 or whatever time it is when you get done taking the test, it's over. Right, and you can go hang out with your friends and go to Chipotle or McDonald's, wherever it is you guys like to go. Maybe I'm getting too old. Maybe those aren't the cool places anymore. Okay, but you guys can do whatever you want after the test. So all I ask is that you guys realize that when you wake up in the morning, when you're done taking that test, you're the same person. The sun's still up. It's the world is still spinning. You're the same person. And again, I know that sounds cliche, but the more you can recognize that, the less stress you can put on this test and just kind of let it come to you. And what happens is the better that you're going to do. When I was a kid, I was a really good test taker, but I never, ever, ever went into a test. I really never thought about my future beyond probably the next day. I never went into a test being like, I got to get 100% or I got to get a 36. Right? For those that have watched our videos this week, even I've talked about how I would never focus. I would always try to get the minimum to please my parents. My mom's a math teacher, so you guys can imagine if you have a parent that's a teacher, how kind of on your back they always are. So believe me, I get it. If you guys have any parents that are super type A, that are constantly asking you guys questions or whatever about how your prep is going, I get that. And so I would always try to do the bare minimum, and what that allowed me to do was I never overextended. Thanks, Levi. I appreciate that. I'm not getting too old. It hasn't been that long since I was in your position, so I appreciate that comment. But guys, again, it's so important that you guys think about that, right? I know what it's like to have a parent kind of riding you and trying to get you to prepare, and I pushed back. Part of the reason I was the way that I was because I pushed back the exact opposite. That the more somebody told me to do something, it wasn't that I then took them up on that, and I was like, if they say I can't do it, I'm going to do it. It wasn't like that at all. It was, if they tell me to do it this way, I'm going to just do it the opposite way, almost to be, a contrarian, and that's not a good approach on almost anything except for on a test like this, because I would go into the test just being like, oh, whatever happens, happens, as for those that watched our reading video last night or our math video a couple of nights ago, it's like, well, if I get 52 questions right on the math test, which in school, this test was built for me. For a student that tried to find the minimums, if you got 52 right and then you guessed the rest of the way, you got a 99%, right? A 34 on the math section is 55, 56 questions right. And for those that watched our review video a couple nights ago, that's all you have to do is get 52 questions right, and then make sure you guess on those last 8. You probably get 55 right. And again, this test is suited for students who are going to take a deep breath. They're going to realize that after the test is over, the sun's still up. You guys can go to Chipotle. I'm glad to hear that that's still the cool place to go, and I'm not getting too old, right? And you guys can be in the moment and be at the test and try to be accurate and answer as many questions as you can correctly. And then again, for those that have recognized what we've talked about these last couple nights on these different review videos, you'll know that the timing on this test, getting flustered about timing, does not matter for 1 single second unless you're trying to score a 35 or a 36. And you guys already know this, but you shouldn't go into any test thinking you're going to score a 35 or a 36. That doesn't mean you're not going to do it, right? But if you have a great day, if you set your goals at a 33, 34, because that's where you've been practice testing, if you've been practice testing at that, then that's yeah, I think I can match my goal that I've been doing these last couple of nights. There's no pressure on that. And guess what? If I have a great day, that's awesome. That's where you hit those big numbers. And the only way to do that is to not be stressed, because when you're in the real environment and you're just locked in, when the teacher or the proctor says something at the front of the room 12 minutes to go and you're behind time, rather than taking a deep breath and remembering that you can always guess, those students that go in thinking I need to get a 36 or I have to exceed my practice test scores by 3 points today, that's that moment where everybody locks up with those 12 minutes to go, and instead of remembering their strategy, it's just, how many questions can I answer right? I'm not going to hit my goal score, and that's where you freak out. For me, when I took a test like this, when the teacher said 12 minutes left, I was like, oh, guess I'll keep going, right? I got 12 minutes to go. And I was very, very in the moment. I was competitive as a kid. I wanted to. Part of this is you have to be competitive. You have to want to beat the person sitting next to you, and that seems kind of harsh, but it's true. And so again, if you can take that mindset of how do I get one more question right? How do I don't want to, I have 12 minutes left. I don't want to get 50 questions right. I want to get 10 questions right. I want to set a reasonable expectation in these next 12 minutes, and I'm going to knock it out of the park on those 10. And if I have to guess on 5 more at the end, I know I did well if I was accurate on those 10. Can everybody give me a thumbs up if all that makes sense? Can you guys give me a thumbs up if that makes sense? Everybody give me a thumbs up if that makes sense. I just can't stress that mindset will allow you guys to far exceed any goal score, any practice test score if you go in with that mindset. Because for a lot of you, if you've been practice testing and really putting in the work and the time and the effort, if you're able to combine it and just kind of let it go and be like, whatever happens, happens. I know this material. If you're ready to just kind of let that go and you merge that really strong work ethic and that kind of ability to just be like, we'll see what happens today. When you merge those two things, that's when you see those massive jumps. And we've seen students do it. I've seen enough students at this point where we've seen students just kind of go crazy and knock it out 4 or 5 additional points, higher than they've ever practice tested. And 99% of the time, it comes from the student that's just like, whatever happens, happens. right? And not putting so much pressure on yourself, because that's going to ruin it. I promise you that's going to ruin your day tomorrow. If you go in with an expectation that's 5 points higher than your practice test scores, if you go in with the expectation, like, I just want to match my best score tomorrow. I've taken a practice test, I got a 29, and I want to match that, I guarantee you get a 32. If you go in thinking, I got to get a 32 or my parent is going to be so mad at me, right, you're going to be really, it's going to be really tough to improve. Does that make sense? Any questions on that, guys? Any questions at all? Okay. All right, guys. So a couple other questions here. A couple things I want to bring up. I want you guys to take a look here. So one of the things that we're really adamant about with our own students is the ability to warm up a bit before you guys get going. Okay. So the ability to warm up a bit before you guys get going. If you guys see the background of my screen. So you guys will see that we have the Star U app, right? We've talked about this. It's free, so I highly encourage you guys to download it. If you don't want to, you don't have to, but it's free in the App Store. It's free on Google Play. And one of the things we've encouraged our students to do for a long time is if you guys clicked ACT, right? If you guys click ACT here on the homepage, all you need to do is click ACT English. And again, the benefit for taking the ACT over the SAT is really one major advantage is the fact that you guys get to start with the English test. So by starting with the English test, you guys actually start with the easiest test, particularly if you put in all of the hard work and effort beforehand. And so what we ask our students to do, if you guys have a link or if you guys already have this downloaded, what I'd encourage you guys to do is to set a reminder for yourself that when you guys get to the line, right, to check in, or even if you're going in your car to get ready to go, I highly encourage you guys to be doing practice problems on your phone, right? This can all be done on your phone. You see punctuation. And again, the major benefit to having the English test first is that it's the easiest test, right? So you guys click punctuation and I wouldn't even click punctuation, honestly, because that's a harder section. I'd click verb tense, right? Click verb tense and start to get just your mindset ready to go. Does that make sense, guys? Does that make sense? Can everybody give me a thumbs up if you guys have any questions? Any questions, guys? Any questions at all? Yeah, man. So James, that's awesome. So that's awesome. I mean, you can see, right? Part of the reason too, James, is when you get ready to go, right? Like so you warm up, you do the practice test. One of the beautiful things about the English test on the ACT, and again, this is where you guys have a big advantage, unfortunately, over the SAT test takers. Don't tell them that, but the major advantage that you guys have over the SAT test takers is because when you start with English, and if you put in the work, and James, that's awesome with the 35, that you should go in tomorrow with the mindset, if you don't get a 35, it is what it is, but a 35 is in the top 1%. So James, realistically, with a score like that, you can go in and think like, let me set my floor at a 33, right, James? That's something I think that's reasonable. If you've been getting 35s on consecutive practice tests, let me set a goal score of a 33. If I go above that and I meet that, that's great. If I don't and I hit my goal score of 33, maybe you're a little disappointed on the day of, but there's not this like overwhelming sense of I let myself down or I let a parent down or whatever. Okay, so I think that's first of all great, and then the major advantage to being able to warm up before a practice test is the fact that you can go in here, right? You have these practice questions, and you get started on the right foot. And guys, what we've seen is if you get started well on the English test, if you come out of English and you're like, yeah, I did pretty well on that test, it's amazing how well you can do, how well you guys can do then overall in the rest of the test. The last thing in the world you want to have happen is like, what we've seen a lot is, let's say your math score is your best score typically. That's typically your best section score. Okay, and if that's your best section score, then and you don't have a great day, so like right, if your math is your best section, Levi, and or who have James, right, Rowan, if that's your best section score and you don't have a great day on that section, it's really 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 hard to then keep wanting that momentum and keep having that desire to improve from there. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Let's see. Yeah, guys. So there is a Rowan. Yeah. So is there even still a June ACT? Yeah. So Rowan, it's not for it's this is a really weird time. So if you guys are asking about whether or not you have a June ACT exam, it's largely just based on county and state and country even. It all depends on what's going on with all the pandemic stuff. So if there are places that just haven't had a June ACT that aren't going to have a June ACT, California being one of them. But there are certain states that do have the ACT tomorrow. And so if you don't have it tomorrow, we encourage two things. One is that you guys get ready to go for the July test, but make sure that you can sign up for July, and I'd sign up as quickly as you can. But yeah, there are some states that do still have the June ACT. Okay, yeah, and James, that's awesome. So again, as you guys go through this process, as you guys keep working hard throughout this process, I highly, highly, highly encourage you guys that you warm up. You have everything ready to go. I post that link to the video at the top. So if you guys see the video for the 5 essential items you should have ready to go the night before the ACT exam. The one thing that I want to continue to reiterate is how important it is to be able to relax and not have any anxiety and not have any stress throughout the exam. Does that make sense? Any questions overall, guys? Can you guys give me a thumbs up if that makes sense? Yeah. Yeah, so Ohio ACT is still on. Guys, if you guys have any questions, again, throughout, if you guys have any comments or concerns, we're always here to help you guys. Again, this particular video wasn't really designed to teach you guys anything new or to review. I don't actually believe in. You can review things. That one thing I would encourage is you guys can definitely review things tonight and keep working hard on stuff that you've already seen. But look, if you haven't practiced matrices, right, on the math section, if you haven't practiced matrices in the last 2 months, don't start trying to learn that tonight. That's going to be at most one question on the math test tomorrow, and it makes absolutely no sense to focus on that one question and then overwhelm yourself and then try to and then not let and have it negatively affect the rest of your exam. Does that make sense? So again, if you guys have an opportunity to take the test tomorrow, we highly encourage you to just review, just lightly review, particularly the English section, just because that is so easy, and it's really easy if you put in some really hard work over the last couple months. We review a little bit of that tonight. Get yourself off on the right foot, and I can't stress enough. English, I read a lot, and I've told you guys that from the last couple videos. I read a lot, and my ability to read and to see a lot of this edited, and I love to read as a kid too. So that really helped me on the English and reading sections. When you see a lot of this punctuation and grammar, it just sticks with you. And so when I would go in and take the English test, and that was one of my better sections, if I would go in and take the English test and I could do really well on that exam, then the rest of the test I felt like kind of a desire to. I mean, I had, again, such a bad work ethic. I thought it was really cool. I wasn't. And in school, I just give up a lot of the time because I didn't put in the work and I didn't know what the teacher was talking about. On a test like this, where if I got started well in the English section and I could put in some time, then I was going to do well in the rest of the test. Had English not been my better section and that didn't start the test overall, I probably would have done horribly on a test like this because I would have been the type to just give up. The last thing I want to leave you guys with in terms of this, like trying to get you guys ready to go for tomorrow, is this ability. So the reason I use Harvard as an example only because everybody knows Harvard, but the reason this test still means something to Harvard, there's this constant debate about like what do these tests really mean for students. The thing that you guys want to continue to remember is that the reason Harvard thinks this is so important is because when you get to Harvard, and again, that's just an example. This is true of every college, but Harvard in particular. You have to sit there on a Saturday if you're taking a calculus class, and this is true for every college, but Harvard has the top students in the world, right? And you sit there for 3 hours and you take a calculus final over the last semester's worth of material. So you can argue all day long that the ACT and the SAT don't have the right content and we're not testing the right things. I don't know if I would agree, but I could definitely see an argument, and I could potentially agree with that. But you can't convince me for 1 second that a test like this doesn't matter for college, because when you get to college, you're going to have a 3-hour, 3.5-hour test, and it's going to happen every semester. And so why I bring that up is because if you go to Harvard, you're competing against the top 1% of students. So you're at 34, 35, 36. But at every level of a college test is graded on a scale. I don't know if you guys knew that, but a college test is graded on the same bell curve per class as the ACT and the SAT, if you can believe that. So the class, right, has an average score set, and then a certain number of A's are presented, just like a certain number of 35s or whatever, 36s are presented, right? And it has a bell curve just like the SAT and the ACT. And so the reason this is so important is because you guys have to think about this is you're competing against the rest of the country. So when you have that moment, and you will have that moment tomorrow, I guarantee it, because I had that moment. For those that watched that A11 video a couple weeks ago, it is so sorry, I believe I just saw your comment come in. I'll answer that in a second. But for those that A11 video that you guys watched, I was exhausted. And I had a lot of moments, particularly on the science test, where I was just like, nope, this isn't going to happen. Because it was live and because it was a video, I felt like I should probably keep going. But it's that type of anxiety to want to keep going for one reason or another that you have to have tomorrow. You can't be in that situation tomorrow where you're like, oh, you know what, I'm just done. I don't even care if somebody's mad. I don't care if I don't, please my parents tomorrow, whatever. You got to want it for you, and you got to really compete. You got to sit there, and you got to realize, even if as annoying as it might be, if my voice is in the back of your head tomorrow, when you just feel like giving up, and you're like, no, one more. If that happens, that is a huge win for both of us. Because what that's telling me is that you're sitting there and you're wanting to compete. You want to get that next question right. And what we saw from the reading video yesterday, you guys saw this, that every single one of the questions is worth another point, right? If you're at 30 on the reading section and you decide, you know what, I'm not gonna give up right now. Or if you're at a 25, right, 25, I'm not gonna give up. I'm gonna do one more, and you get one more question right, that's a 26 on the reading test. There's absolutely no reason to give up. And again, when you sit at these colleges, especially the elite colleges, and you're competing against somebody that's so involved and so competitive, they're not going to give up either. And so you got to want it, right? You got to want it. Levi, that was the big thing. For whatever reason, I wanted it with a test like this. To answer your question about how to become an ACT tutor, I was a good test taker as a kid, but I wanted it. I wanted to prove. I had something to prove on a test like this, probably because I was the kid that, and I hate saying this, but I was the person that always used to say, like, oh, that person's not that smart. They just work harder than me. When I look back at myself saying that now, I'm just so embarrassed, because that is the worst excuse ever for somebody that might be a good test taker, right? And I would use this at the time as motivation to be like, you know what, I'm going to show whoever that they just work harder and I can test better than them. But in reality, every single one of those students was more successful than I was in college. And until I was 23, 24 and finally had this epiphany of like, you know what, I better start working harder than I am right now. I better, this whole test taking thing is out the window when you turn 22, right? After you're done with college. I better start working a bit harder. And when I merged those two things, that you can accomplish incredible things. But I can't stress this enough, guys, that the testing ability can be learned. Okay, if you don't have a strong work ethic right now, that has to change. And for those that are listening to me, you can take it from somebody who is that way. If Netflix was available when I was 16 years old, it would have been like next episode, right? YouTube I would have had 10 million watch hours on YouTube in a year. Okay, but it is just so important, guys, that you stay focused on what matters, and that's being a really strong student and having a really strong work ethic. Because regardless of how this test comes out, that will serve you so well in whatever you decide to do. And I hope by saying that, you guys realize and take some of that stress off yourself tomorrow. Yeah, James, I love that. I know that might be annoying, and I hope that doesn't last for very long. But if that happens, right, if you're hearing my voice in the back of your head and that's helping you, then I love it. Hopefully that goes away after like a year or two. But I'm telling you, right, even now, like I find myself looking at way, way, way too in depth. I used to never do this as a kid, but when I'm reading something now, I will sometimes look at that and I'll read and be like, that's a dependent clause leading into an independent clause. I'm just like, I am so annoying. I'm annoying myself thinking about that, right? But amazingly, on a test like this, that is going to help you 99 out of 1,000, or 99 out of 1,000, 99 out of 100. That ability to think like that is going to help you on the ACT. As annoying as that might be, every time, even when people say this is the worst. When I was 16 years old, if I heard myself say what I'm about to say, I would have probably been embarrassed on that age. But like even when people use incorrect grammar or like say spell with like TOO when they spell with TO, right? I go crazy, and I don't say anything. Fortunately, I probably wouldn't have much of a social life or any friends if I was constantly correcting everybody on their grammar. And I'm sure I use slang all the time as well. But it is amazing that when you put in enough time and you put in enough effort on this stuff, you just start seeing these. You start hearing my voice in the back of your head, James, and eventually you're just going to start hearing your own voice, being like, "No, that's a circles problem," or whatever, right? It goes even for those that watched the A11 videos a couple weeks ago. That live stream, there was like a kite problem, like, and I always tell myself to memorize like the kite area formula. And it's just like whatever, If I didn't know the kite, I'm not gonna beat myself up over it today. And you just move on from that question. You take a guess and you go to Chipotle after, right? And you load up on a huge burrito and call it a day, and that'll make you feel better, right? It doesn't have to be the end of the world. Just go in there, set a floor for yourself. Don't set a ceiling. I say this to our students, or my students sometimes. I'm not working with as many individual students, but I used to say this all the time, which is set a floor for yourself tomorrow. Don't set a ceiling. I would always have a floor. I knew when you know your minimums, like I knew my minimums. What was the lowest I needed to get an A minus so that my mom, or B minus so that my mom wouldn't ground me for the weekend. Right? What was the lowest score I could possibly get in that situation? I knew all those numbers, and so when I go into the ACT, it was like, let's set a floor. I'm not thinking I can get a 36 today, but if I set a floor for myself to get a 33, 34, and I had that thought in high school as well, then I know I'm not going to go below that. And so then when the kite problem from A11 test comes around and I have no idea what the kite, I still didn't look it up, right? That's unfortunately still I had some of that laziness and that lack of work ethic inside of me. That's at my core. But I just still didn't look up the kite formula. But when I see it on the test like that, I'm just like, whatever. It is what it is. I can still hit my floor, and I never had a ceiling to begin with, so there's no lockup. I never had that moment of tense stress, anxiety that I've seen from a lot of students. And again, the content on this test, you remember I said this in our English video, conjunction, junction, what's your function, right? You remember that from Schoolhouse Rocks? Now I might be too old. I might be too old for you guys for that. But if you guys remember that song, that's like a 6, conjunction, junction, what's your function is like the half of the punctuation section. Like if we come down here and you look at this, and you go to run-ons here, talking about the fanboys conjunctions, conjunction, junction, what's your function? There's a reason I'm an ACT tutor, not a singer. Okay, but the fanboys conjunctions were from that Schoolhouse Rocks videos that students watch in like 5th grade. That's how I know you guys can do really well if you just take the pressure off. That you're talking about 5th grade, 6th grade grammar. You're talking about 8th grade reading passages. Even at the absolute height of this, which is the math section, which is by far the hardest section, even if you're a great math student, it's still the hardest because there's so many concepts on the ACT math section. Even on the math section, it only goes up to pre-calculus, very beginning pre-calculus concepts. And if you have the time, you can do those, right? If you have the time and the work ethic, you can put the time in, and you can knock those out of the park too. Okay, so again, guys, this doesn't have to be the end-all, be-all tomorrow. You just have to keep working hard, keep your head up. When you get to that moment tomorrow where you feel exhausted or whatever, take a deep breath, take 30 seconds off, because that's a lot better than giving up with 10 questions to go. Deep breath, 30 seconds off. I used to do this. Lean back, right? Lean back. Just be like, right? And you just take that moment, that breather, and then you jump back into it. And even if it means in that 30 seconds that you lose the last question, you have to guess on the last question, at least it doesn't mean that you had to give up on the last 10. Okay? So you got to be very aware of that tomorrow during the time, right? During the test, during whichever section you're looking at. Does that make sense, guys? Can everybody give me a thumbs up if that all makes sense? Thumbs up if that all makes sense. Any questions, guys? Any last second questions? Again, the most important thing that you guys can do is have your stuff ready to go tonight. You guys are gonna do great. If you have any questions tonight or tomorrow, or if you just wanna, you guys just want to send an email saying how great or how badly or just how exhausted you are after the test, you guys can send it to us and we'll read them. Okay, whatever. But just if you want to get something off your chest with regards to the ACT after the class, email us, do whatever. But the most important things that you guys can remember is that the sun will still be up when it's 12:30 tomorrow, assuming that it's sunny tomorrow wherever you guys are living. Okay, the sun will still be up. It's 12:30. Go hang out with your friends. Forget about the ACT for a while. It's summertime. Right? There's a lot to enjoy. And yeah, have the stuff ready to go tonight so that you're not stressed and anxious tomorrow morning. And yeah, do some warm-up problems on the app tomorrow. When you guys have a moment, do some warm-up problems instead of being stressed and listening to everybody who is stressed in line. Right, as you guys get ready to go and go into the testing center, do some practice problems on your phone. Do some practice problems on the app, and you guys will be ready to go. Is that cool? And then there's no stress. You guys are going to do great. Yeah, guys, that's right. So Levi, yeah, go in, give it everything you got. Okay, yeah, target score tomorrow. You don't have to do it anymore, right? And you forget about this. You don't have to worry about this, and then you have a year to start looking at colleges and thinking about that and really planning the next steps in your life, guys. This is going to be such a small thing in your overall lives, and I know you guys hear that, but hopefully you guys can hear that from somebody who does this for a living and sees. I've seen 1,000 students in the last 7 years, and more if you count the YouTube stuff, But again, this is just not a defining thing. I'm gonna get off this tonight, right? When we end this live stream, I'm gonna get off this. I'm gonna go to dinner with my sister and her boyfriend and not think about the ACT. And that's how you guys should be tonight too. Do a little bit of review, right? And then crush it tomorrow. And then go get Chipotle after, and you guys will have a great rest of your weekend. Okay, it'll feel great. All right, guys, you guys are going to do great. I'll leave it at that. James, thanks for tuning in. Yeah, I hope good luck tomorrow, guys. I hope you guys all do really well. I know you will. I know you guys will keep putting in the time and the effort. And if you have any questions for us tonight, let me know. Otherwise, yeah, get your stuff ready to go. Warm up tomorrow morning, and yeah, good luck, guys. I really hope you guys do well. And yeah, have a great rest of your weekend after that. All right, guys, I'm out of here.